Julian is doing dad things. So I am joined by Sam from 801 Bracketology.
Hey everybody, glad to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
And as everybody knows, Michael from the Circle Up. Much
Yeah.
sadder. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Sam, for joining us again, carving out some time. What is presumably a very busy time of year for you, and tweaking things, getting some good content out. So we're happy to, like Curtis said, welcome you back and get to it.
Yeah, you guys are both just to give a brief intro, you guys are both much more I don't want to use the word nerds, but you guys are much smarter than I am. That's a better way to put it. When it comes to bracketology, analytics, things of that nature. It seems like Mizzou is probably in the tournament. Is that, Sam, at this point, is that fair to say by like most of the metrics that I've seen?
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. I think last time we were talking, last time I came on, we were kind of talking about what the outlook was for Mizzou down the stretch, and I think at that point they were on the outside looking in. But I think I told you guys that I had a pretty good feeling that Mizzou was going to turn this down the stretch and would end up being in. And so I think you could have gotten some pretty good a pretty good line at whether Mizzou made the tournament or not back when we talked, and I hope you made some money on that because I was 100% right. Mizzou's come around. They're going to make the tournament. They'll be playing. I would just the only thing that I'm kind of watching. I've got them listed right now as my last 10 seed, but there's a little bit of a gap between the 10 and 11 seeds. The 11 seeds are pretty bad right now, and I think for Mizzou to even put themselves onto the bubble, I guess LSU would have to beat Kentucky on Wednesday, and then LSU would have to beat Missouri on Thursday. And I just don't think that LSU's got that firepower right now, especially after some of the injuries they've had late in the year.
Actually, that would put LSU possibly over.
No, I don't. I don't think LSU would get in. I think that a bad loss to LSU.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. I was about to say, I was like, I didn't think that was possible. Yeah.
No. LSU's far gone, but Mizzou for sure just doesn't want to lose to LSU. And so if I was a Mizzou fan, I'd be cheering for Kentucky on Wednesday, which I know that's not something you guys like to do, but if Kentucky was to win that game, it's almost like a solidified guaranteed. If you lose to Kentucky, that's not a bad loss, and then you just gear up for next week.
That's essentially what you told us last time was that Mizzou's remaining schedule had a lot of good teams. There was not a single bad loss necessarily remaining on their schedule at the time. Mike, do you want to get into this right now? Of speaking of Tigers, do we want to get into the Auburn of it all?
Yeah,
just want to jump right in because this was kind of the most compelling. You know, it seems like most people have Mizzou in the tournament. Mizzou versus Auburn, though, you know, those are two interesting resumes. One extremely strong non-con, one extremely weak non-con. What does it look like from you know, someone like you who does this, you know, is very, very good at this? How do you kind of weigh that?
Yeah, stuff? I mean, let me pull them up side by side for you, and I'll give you just kind of a comparison.
We're going LSU, the LSU of it all. You know, Tigers versus Tigers. You know, it's
We'll just cover Tigers the rest of the night. We'll go to Clemson.
Exactly. Yeah, another interesting one.
And Princeton.
Side by side, Auburn has such an interesting resume because they've got one of the best wins in the country. I think I've posted a graphic for the last couple of weeks now showing the top 10 wins of teams that are going to make the tournament throughout the entire season. And Auburn's got like the third or fourth best win of anyone in the country. And that win is at Florida when they won there back in January, which was right before Auburn really turned the page on their like total sprint for a 1 seed. And I think they're going to get there. And so Auburn was like the last
Florida, you mean? Yeah.
Florida. Or that's what I meant.
Yeah,
Florida. Florida turned the pages, and they're on this full sprint to a 1 seed at this point. And that was kind of the final loss that Florida had was to Auburn before they went on this massive run. So a huge win for Auburn. But there just has to be something in the committee's minds that precludes a team from making the tournament if they have 15 losses or more. There have been 4 teams in the history of March Madness that have gotten in with 15 losses. But those are all teams that went 17-14 in the regular season and then lost their first tournament game, their first conference tournament game. So 17-15. Auburn's sitting at 16-15 going into the SEC tournament, and they're going to be pending a matchup against Mississippi State on Wednesday, who they just lost to on February 18th. So all of that to say, Mizzou or Auburn has to win that game, and then they have to probably beat Tennessee to be in. Otherwise, you're looking at a team that has 16 losses and only 17 wins or so, and that there's just nothing in the history of March Madness or of the selection committee would lead me to believe that they would put Auburn in, regardless of how good the win is against Florida, regardless of where their metrics are at.
And Mike and I were talking about this earlier. So we've got, if you're just directly comparing Auburn and Mizzou, obviously Mizzou's got a few more wins, but we played a much, much easier non-con schedule. But even if you're looking at best wins, it seems like the top 4-ish are pretty even. They both beat Florida. They both beat Kentucky. And then what it comes down to, that fourth win, whether it be like Vandy or Tennessee for Mizzou, or maybe like NC State for Auburn.
Yeah, I think I think that's totally fair. To as kind of
St.
a
John's
tiebreaker.
too.
Yeah, St. John's, NC State. Yeah.
Yep. It's kind of a tiebreaker that the committee will look at in those cases where the wins are really similar, at least the top end wins. They will look at what you did in the non-conference, and so they would probably look at the resume side by side and say, okay, Mizzou scheduled a pretty poor non-conference. Their best non-conference win is against Minnesota. Auburn's scheduled a really good non-conference, and they've got wins in the non-conference against tournament teams in St. John's and NC State. NC State most likely at this point. But I would still also in that facet, I would say that Auburn edges out Mizzou. But the overarching fact is kind of Auburn is behind Mizzou in several of the resume spots at this point, including a strength of record and wins above bubble. And we've talked on this show about wins above bubble and how important that metric is. It is one of the driving factors that the committee used last year to seed the entire tournament, and last year was its first year in existence. So, in fact, if you seeded the entire tournament last year by wins above bubble, just using that one ranking, you would have been like one or two teams off.
So seems like a very, very important metric, maybe.
Yep, it's hefty. So, Mizzou's sitting at 39 right there, and wins above bubble, which would lead you to believe they're a 10 seed. The 10 seed falling between the 37 and 40 range. And then Auburn's sitting at 45, and that gets into kind of the danger territory. If you have a wins above bubble or a comprehensive resume metric over 50, it is almost like a exclusion from the NCAA tournament. You can't have your resume metrics be above 50. And Auburn's teetering on that right now. They get pushed over the line for me because they've got so many losses.
Yeah, that's that was kind of my theory. At a certain point, yeah, if you got 16, possibly 17 losses, it just has to matter at some point. Do you put any weight into? Obviously, you kind of already addressed it. Like, yeah, they might have. You agreed with. I'm sorry, I can't remember his first name. I'll just call him Nepo Pearl, for now. Saying that they had the best win in the country, and you kind of agreed with that. But it sounds like, at a certain point it does, the wins and losses do matter a bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry to make you rehash stuff you've already kind of said, but yeah, just to make sure.
No, you're good. That's absolutely the case for Auburn, and I think especially where if you're in Auburn's situation, you have to have multiple points that kind of push you above the limit to get into the NCAA tournament that the committee can look at and really support that. And I think the only thing that they have is that Florida win. They are 2-8 on the road. One of those wins is against Auburn. The other is against Ole Miss. They haven't won anything on the road besides those two games this year. And
Florida and Ole Miss, yeah.
Yeah, and so there's just not much that supports Auburn's resume.
Hypothetically, a maybe a semifinal or finals run in the SEC tournament could, I even for me,
For Auburn?
yeah, could be
Yeah,
In my mind, it might be enough. So I was curious what your thoughts were on that.
yeah, I would agree with that. I think a semifinal run would give them wins over Tennessee and Vanderbilt. Those are
Hmm.
two additional Q1 wins, and that would mean that they win 3 games. So they'd be sitting at 19 and 15 going to the SEC semifinal. And even if they lost that, they're sitting 19 and 16. I think that's probably enough for them, with the strong strength of schedule, with the top end win, and adding a couple more Q1s on the way.
Mike, I know you've got some questions, but I'm ready to roll if you're still getting your stuff ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Go for it.
Probably pretty broad, generic, but Mizzou makes the tournament. They go in as a 10. Let's say, what do you think the potential ceiling is for this type of team after 30 odd something games watching them?
Yeah, I think it's ceilings are always hard to say in the tournament because it's so matchup dependent. But I can absolutely see Mizzou making a Sweet 16, going on a run. I think it's not out of the realm of possibility. I would love to see Dennis Gates play a little bit better in March. I know he's been really bad in March last few since he started. Really, they haven't been great in March, but would love to see them go on a run here. The matchups that would be great for them if they were to earn that 10 seed. St. Mary's would be a decent matchup for Mizzou. I think that they could get past St. Mary's. And then if you're in a 2 seed, like Illinois maybe, or UConn's not playing very well right now. I think those are the matchups that I would watch for that I would feel confident about if I were a Mizzou fan.
I don't think I want to. I don't think I want to see
Play.
Mizzou versus Illinois again anytime
No,
soon after what happened on
I don't blame you.
right
no,
around
no.
Christmas time. But yeah,
Yeah, I've been seeing a common 7-10 matchup. I'm sure everyone has different takes and opinions, but one that I keep seeing is like a BYU versus Mizzou.
oh, there we go.
Yeah,
I,
I could see that happening.
I don't know what you have BYU going in at, but who I kind of
I've got
keep
BYU as a 6 seed right now. I don't feel super
6. Okay,
confident in that. I don't feel super confident there because for a couple reasons. I think the committee has seen how BYU's played without Richie Saunders, and it hasn't been good outside of a home win against Iowa State and a home win against Texas Tech. They've been really bad besides those 2 games. And so I could see them punishing them a seed line for that. One of the biggest challenges I think right now for me is that no one feels like a 6 seed outside of Wisconsin and Tennessee. But you have to pick 2 other teams to go on that seed line. So I have BYU and Louisville right now. But I could see this. I could honestly see the committee seeding both of those teams as low as 8 seeds. So it's kind of a toss up right now.
Yeah, maybe 10 teams fighting for those 2 spots, kind of essentially
Yeah.
for the last couple of sixes.
Yeah, but that would be a really intriguing matchup to see Mizzou and BYU. I think that would be a fantastic game. Um, let's see. Mizzou is sitting at 49th in offense, 78th in defensive efficiency. To give you kind of an idea of where BYU's at, BYU's got a really good offense, really potent offense. 11th in the nation right now in offense, 68th in defense. BYU's been awful defensively over
Yeah,
the last
could be a
last month.
fun game.
Horrible. And so it really could turn into a complete shootout. Not two very average defenses, average to below average, and then 2 decent offenses. I think it could turn into one of those like 85, 84 tournament games, and could go one way or the other.
I do want to come back to some potential Mizzou matchups, but I did want to ask what at this point, because Mizzou is kind of still on the bubble, even though most people have them in. What are kind of the list of teams for you that could maybe make moves in conference tournament, etc. Like who are they necessarily concerned about? Kind of taking their spot. Who should Mizzou fans be worried about right now watching conference tournament week?
Yeah, the teams right below them include NC State, Santa Clara, Texas. I would include SMU in that conversation, and perhaps Stanford. I don't know that I would go that low, but Stanford's right below that for me. And so the ACC tournament's going to be pretty important for seeding here down the stretch. give you an idea of what's happening in the ACC tournament that kicks off tomorrow.
Yeah. SMU and Stanford,
Then,
classic ACC opponents, obviously.
exactly. Right. I hate this. I hate the
I know.
expansion.
I'm sorry. I had to.
Love it. So, yeah, tomorrow Stanford kicks off and plays Pitt. SMU kicks off and plays Syracuse tomorrow afternoon. So those two teams I would be watching heavily tomorrow afternoon to see what they do. If they're both able to get past their first round opponents, both of them should be able to win. But then probably at least maybe top 3 matchups this entire week, top 3 most important matchups would be that second round game if Stanford won tomorrow. NC State Stanford on Wednesday would be like a win and you're in, lose and you're out situation. And if I was a Mizzou fan, I'd be pulling for Stanford hard in that game because I think NC State has the ability to pass Mizzou. I don't know that Stanford has the ability.
If Stanford gets 2 wins but doesn't make it any further, you still think Mizzou would probably be ahead of them?
I think so.
Gotcha.
So those are a couple of the teams I'd watch. Santa Clara is an interesting one, and they play tonight against St. Mary's. That's
by the time most people are hearing this, it'll that game should be over. But
that's true. Yes.
Fingers crossed.
We'll see what happens there. It tips off super late tonight, 11:30 p.m. Eastern. But Santa Clara's already beat St. Mary's once this year, but St. Mary's looked pretty dominant the other time that they played, and St. Mary's looks really good right now down the stretch. So we'll see how that pans out. But Santa Clara is absolutely a team that could jump them.
So even if if Santa Clara let's say hypothetically, again, this game's going to be over by the time most people hear this, but if Santa Clara is competitive but still loses, you're, again, very, 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 very good at what you do. I was just curious, and I think most people would be, how important are these conference tournament games? And is it if you can pull off a big win, is that kind of all that matters? If you fight hard but you lose to a good team, it doesn't really hurt you, but it's kind of maybe a little bit upside, but not as much as there would be in the regular season necessarily.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair, and I think there's a good reason behind that. People always want the conference tournament games to matter more, right? They want to say, hey, we won this conference tournament game, we should be bumped up a whole seed line, and to be completely frank, at the end of the year, the pie is already mostly baked. Like we've got 31 slices of the pie for every team now, right? And what does one more slice do if that?
And you've got people playing back-to-back nights. It's
exactly So it's super challenging to tell exactly what the committee is going to do in terms of how important they'll treat those games. I tend to only watch the extreme results and adjust my seed lines from there. And so if a team was to pick up a huge win against like a Florida or an Arizona or a Michigan, I would be like, okay, that's one that we have to know because that changes the entire resume over the course of the entire season. But if you're just beating up on the middling teams in your conference, it's not going to make that much of a
beating
difference.
a 6 seed hypothetically, doesn't really change the needle for a bubble team too much.
Exactly.
Okay, good to know.
And I think you also have to keep in mind that the committee first meets tomorrow. They are meeting tomorrow afternoon, gathering in Indianapolis, which I believe that's where they do this every year, to start their process. And by Wednesday, they've already got teams picked into the tournament. And so games that happen on Thursday, Friday, Saturday are all kind of up in the air as to whether the committee's paying attention. They've already got the teams seated or how much impact they're going to have on those games.
Maybe just slight seeding dependent, but nothing crazy. Mike, what you got?
That's all very, very interesting. I didn't realize how early they actually they didn't set these seeds in stone, but they're damn near there. I didn't realize that it happens almost 3 days prior.
Yeah,
that's very
that, I guess. The schedule goes. They meet for like an introductory meeting on Tuesday night. Wednesday they spend all day together watching the games and selecting the first, I don't know, like 30 teams or so every year into the tournament. And then on Thursday morning they'll spend the rest of they'll finish the rest of the seed list in terms of the teams, the at-large teams. And then by Friday they are seeding all of those teams into place. Saturday they make the bracket, Sunday they release it.
To be a fly on the wall in that room, I assume they're just
Yeah,
drinking a bunch of people drinking Mick Ultras or whatever.
yeah,
Just
Exactly.
much like if we
Getting,
got 30 of us together in a room.
yeah. Executive corporate dining's catering.
Yeah,
They all have
some
dual
mac and
monitors.
cheese under a heat lamp.
Yeah,
The good stuff.
no one's actually sitting at the desk that they roll in. One thing I was thinking, so with from like a strategic standpoint, with like the wins above bubble being prolific last year and then this year, do you think teams moving forward, if this year is very similar to last year and them using wins above bubble, that teams start to get a little bit more conscious of that and they schedule kind almost accordingly. Like you can't obviously have the crystal ball to say, this team is a bubble team and we may win or
Yeah.
what have you. But
Especially with the portal and everything. Yeah.
do you think teams will get more strategic because they're like you said, half the pie is already baked from conference tournament, so now you have less than 30, 32 spots open.
Give yourself more opportunities. You're saying like to.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say. I think you're already seeing some of that strategic scheduling. Teams have been a little more lenient in the past with who they schedule and who they bring into their gyms. It's becoming a little tighter here in the last few years, especially since the portal era began. Um, Good example of that, you've probably seen in the last week the article about Miami, Ohio published,
Mhm.
where they
oh
reached
yeah,
out to like 75 teams
Yeah.
to schedule this year and only got a response from a handful of them, and the responses were not positive, right?
Bill Self is a coward, but that's my opinion. That's the opinion of the pod, but not your opinion. So we'll leave that there.
But regardless, teams don't want to schedule the wrong mid-major game to come play in their gym, where then if you lose that game, it could cost you like 3 seed lines at the end of the year if you lose the wrong game to the wrong mid-major. So they're very cautious about which teams they're playing. They want to be very confident that it's going to be a very good team, or they want to be very confident that it's going to be a very bad team. They
A
don't
very
want to bring
winnable
the
game. Yeah.
middling teams into their gym and happen to lose one of those games. So they're very careful with it. And I think it's a little bit detrimental to the sport right now. I'd love to
yeah,
see the NCAA change that a little bit. I think a good thing for them to do would be to mandate that every team plays a certain amount of, whether it's 1 or 2 mid-major games every year, or you're required to go play a mid-major on the road to be
Mhm.
an NCAA tournament consideration. If you don't do that, we won't even consider your resume. I would love to see him do something like that because I think it'd be great for the sport um, to see the best athletes playing in small gyms across the country. Uh, and I think you'd get some upsets here and there, which I think are awesome for the sport.
I think most college basketball fans would be on board with that. Is there anything else you'd like to see the NCAA do in terms of kind of the stuff that we're considering for NCAA tournament consideration?
Yeah, there's a handful of things. I think one of the this is more conference specific. One of the things I would like to see conferences do, especially mid-major conferences. One of the biggest struggles we've had in recent years is you have these teams that look really good all season, win their regular season conference title, and then lose. If you're a mid-major team, you lose in the early rounds of your conference tournament and you don't make March Madness, and your resume is not even good enough to go to the NIT. So you have the best mid-major teams not always making March Madness and ending their seasons early. And I would love to see conferences be a little more strict, I guess I would say, with who they pick to represent them in the NCAA tournament.
Mhm.
And I think you can get really creative in the conference tournaments to figure out how to combat that. I think a good example would be if you win the regular season title in your conference, you advance automatically to the championship game of your conference tournament. You just have to win one game to make March Madness. Everyone else battles it out to figure out who's
Yeah.
going to play the number one seed in the championship. But you get the automatic bye all the way to
Yeah.
the championship
Very
game.
very very interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Or another thought that I've had is conferences could absolutely say, hey, we're going to have this conference tournament and give you all the chance to compete for a conference title, but only the teams that are above KenPom 100 or are above Net 100 are eligible to make the NCAA tournament. So you're all welcome to come compete and have a last hurrah in a cool destination where your fans get to see you one more time. And if you win that championship and your KenPom's 99, congrats, you make the NCAA tournament. If you win that tournament and your KenPom's like 250, you won a conference championship. Congrats, you'll remember that forever. But you don't get to go to March Madness just because you made a little heater of a run in 3 days.
And so there would be, and hypothetically, no automatic bid at that point for that conference, right? Like the team that hypothetically would lose that championship game, if their KenPom is inside 100, but they lost the championship game, they're still up for consideration. But you're saying that there'd be no automatic bid; it wouldn't go to the runner up.
Yeah, I don't think it would go to the runner up. I think obviously conferences can pick whoever they want to represent them in the NCAA tournament. But in my mind, it would be if a team outside the KenPom 100 wins the conference tournament, then you just take the 1 seed from the regular season and plug them into the NCAA tournament and say congrats, because that's obviously the best team and what's been the best team for the last handful of months.
That's gonna tick some people off.
I'm sure it will.
That one, I really do like the first idea of just giving the regular season champion kind of an automatic bye to at least the semifinals, if not the finals. I know we've got double buys and all that jazz. Mike, you got any follow up on any of that?
Yeah, I think you've kind of hit a lot of nails on the right head, but just more of like a public, the committee, and having one uniform way of this is how we measure you. And it can be, as subjective or granular, however you want to phrase it as you want. But I just think for the public and just for teams like scheduling like that, Miami,
You're asking
Ohio
for transparency from the NCAA.
It's going to be hard to get, but maybe just like, hey, we're going to look at 40%, statistical metrics. We're going to look at 40%, resume breakdown with stats, and then we're going to let the committee have like a 20%, say or something like that, and that's just the way they do it. So then you have like a Miami, Ohio, where you're not sending out 100 letters to people, and they just don't even want to touch you because they're paranoid of, well, it doesn't really do us any good. But
yeah,
I don't know, just something like that to like, because I think a lot of people say, or like my timeline's always full of like, some people are like, oh, it should just be the, top 64 teams, statistically or whatever. But it's like, well, what metric do you look at for that? And that only hurts all the mid-major, and that's part of the magic. Why I love March Madness is, watching a McNeese, go on a run, or a St. Peter's, or a FDU, something like that, where they don't get a lot of TV time. They get their own TV time, but they don't get the CBS TV or the TNT broadcast. And I just think that's phenomenal for the sport. It's great for the school. It's free advertising for the school.
Recruiting for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's a perfect science because it's really muddy, but
there is no perfect science. Yeah.
No.
I think the NCAA does a pretty dang good job of the teams that they pick into this tournament and how they format the tournament, and especially how teams are selected. I think there's not much wrong with the process in terms of the way they currently do it. They are pretty transparent about how they go about it. They host, I'm sure you guys saw, they host a mock selection committee. They're going to start doing that every year to kind of exhibit the process for media members, so they're able to really see transparently what the committee sees, what the debates are.
I hope a lot. Yeah.
I think the huge challenge would be if you explicitly come out and say, yeah, we're going to consider 40% of your resume's metrics, 40% is the results, and then whatever percent is your whatever. If they were to set boundaries like that, there's always going to be these fringe teams with weird resumes that don't align to what the 40% is for metrics or the 40% is for resume. Good example of that right now, I think, would probably be Villanova. I think Villanova has a disgusting resume. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's awful. They are currently 2-6 in the first quadrant. They're 8-0 in the second quadrant, but they've only beat one tournament team this entire year. They've only beaten Wisconsin, and that was a non-conference game in December in overtime. The rest of their wins are against teams that will not be making the tournament. Won't even be close to making the tournament. The second closest is probably Seton Hall, and Seton Hall's like 10 teams out right now.
Okay. Q1 technically, but yeah.
Yep, technically Q1, but there's teams across the entire tournament that have beat like 7 or 8 tournament teams. And so if you look at Villanova's resume, it looks good. It's 10-6 in the first 2 quadrants, 8-0 in the second quadrant with 7 road wins in the second quadrant. It looks pretty robust. And their resume metrics are sitting around 24 on average, which would lead you to believe that they're a 6 seed. But when you get into the nitty-gritty of their resume, it's trash. That one win against a tournament team, you have a Q3 loss on your resume, and you haven't done much in terms of recent results. And so I've got Villanova sitting as an 8 seed today. And I love having that ability for the committee to say, yeah, the metrics are this, or yeah, the resume is this, and the quadrant records are this. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of what that actually looks like, and punish a team because they only have a certain amount of wins against tournament teams, or reward teams who are like 7 and 8 in the first quadrant because they have 3 wins against against the best teams in the sport. I think Texas Tech is a good example of that. Right now, most people had them seeded around a 5 seed right before the reveal, and the committee put them as their top 4 seed. Why? Because they were 8 and 8 in the first quadrant, or they are 8 and 8 in the first quadrant now. But they have wins against Duke and Arizona and Houston and Iowa State, and there's always going to be nuance between what your resume is versus the nitty gritty of what those details actually are.
I was waiting for you to finish, but the exact phrase I was going to use was, this is always going to be a nuanced discussion, kind of no matter what happens here. So I'm glad that you kind of finished on that point. I've got one more stupid hypothetical for you.
I got one after you.
Okay, all right. And I'm sorry, they're always going to involve Auburn right now, just because it is kind of the easy example here. So Auburn, what are they? 16 and 15, 16, can't remember their exact record right now. Yeah, 16, 15 right now. So hypothetically, Miami of Ohio loses in the conference title game, and then Auburn makes it to the semifinals of the SEC tournament and loses. So neither one wins their conference tournament, that is. And I mean, just because you have like much more experience on I have my own thoughts as a college basketball fan, but you as someone who pays more attention to what the committee's paying attention to, what would be your gut reaction on how they go on something like that for an at-large?
I mean, I think that both of those teams would get at-larges, but let me give you kind of the reasoning about why I would put one team above the other, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect.
And I think most SEC fans wouldn't like my answer to this, and I think that's okay. I'm fine with that. But the answer is, I think we know who the better basketball team is, right? I think Auburn obviously has the better athletes. I think they're better coached actually than Miami, Ohio is. I think they're an overall better basketball team than Miami is. Miami of Ohio.
But the counter that you'd see online is, well, the game's got to matter, wins and losses, right? Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel. And so that's what I was going to say next is I don't care who the better basketball team is. That's not the committee's goal, is to put the 68 best teams in the tournament. Otherwise, we'd leave mid-majors out entirely.
Most deserving, right? And including the conference champions and whatnot.
Yeah, we wouldn't put these mid-major one-bid conferences in the tournament if we wanted the 68 best teams in this tournament. Mm-hmm. We want the 68 most deserving teams. And I think that's easier to measure than the 68 best teams, to be honest. But if I was to put a 16-loss Auburn ahead of Miami, who has one loss all season, I think we've just lost the plot entirely. Like the games have to matter. And yes, Miami, Ohio has won 26 games of their 28 games, 28 D1 games. 26 of those have been in Q3 or Q4, but they've won every single one of them. And we're talking about teams on the bubble like Auburn, like Mizzou, like Texas, like SMU, like NC State, like UCF, like St. Louis, like Utah State. It's endless. Those teams have all lost Q3 games. And so it is, I don't care how many Q3 or Q4 games you have, it's hard to go out and win every single game against your schedule. And it's not easy, especially in a conference like the MAC that is very, very competitive to go win on the road against those teams. And just to give you kind of an idea, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Q3 wins on the road against competition within their conference or pretty decent teams outside of their conference. And I think that absolutely has to matter. And so to be completely frank, like if Miami got left out of this tournament, I think I would stop doing bracketology forever because we've just lost the plot at that point. A team that wins all of their regular season games has to be in the tournament.
I'm with you. I wish you could see me nodding along with you if my camera was working right now. But I've been just subtly nodding the entire time. All right, Mike, hit us with your hypothetical.
We feel it. What are your thoughts? And I've only seen this percolate a few times on Reddit from someone in like the algorithm statistic world about restructuring. And I don't have an answer for this. This is pure. I'm throwing shit at the wall right now. But could you? A lot of people make the argument that getting the 8 or 9 is one of the probably one of the worst draws in the tournament.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Go on.
No, he's back. I don't know. I don't have an answer for this, and I'm gonna babble on about it. But of moving the 8 and 9 somehow, because I feel like that is just always that game is really 50-50 at the end of the day, and then they get rewarded to obviously play one of the top 4 teams in the tournament or the number 1 at large. And I don't know. I've always felt that way about the 8-9 because I feel like if you're like the 7 or the 6, your path is obviously a little bit better to make it deeper. Because I think people would probably agree. You would probably agree. Teams like 15 or 16 to 40 are pretty damn similar. At the end of the day, like
so that seeding between what 7 and 10 to 6 and 10, honestly, is. And it's not just who gets in; it's who gets the 8 or 9 there. You almost don't want it, right?
No, I wouldn't want it. Like I feel bad for. I don't know. What do you have? Like one team that I like. I've liked watching them play. They're out west is Utah State. What do you have them going in at?
I have them as a 9 seed right now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Do you have any biases as a BYU guy or?
No, I like Utah State a lot.
Okay.
I love the way that they've built their program. I love the way that they keep losing their coaches, but they get new coaches and they're just the same. They don't drop.
Yeah.
Ever.
No. And, so, and I feel like, like they would be a good example of just like as a basketball fan, just like seeing them get over the hump, like to see them win 2 games, and obviously it'd be monumental for them to beat. If they beat like a Florida or an Arizona or someone like that.
Be like a little bit better or a little bit worse and get yourself into a kind of maybe a more favorable draw.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It is difficult to be in the 8-9 game, but we have several good examples of teams that have been in the 8-9 game over the last 7 years or so that have gone on to make significant runs in the tournament. And I think that's for a couple reasons. I think the first is if you can play a really solid game and get past that 1 seed, the road is really easy for the rest of the way down.
Yeah, you get benefits after that. Yeah,
exactly. And I think for some of these other teams, like an 11 seed or a 10 seed, it may be a little bit easier of a road at the beginning, but you've probably got this 1 seed matchup looming in the Elite Eight
Yeah.
to get into the Final Four, right? And for that reason, I don't mind the 8-9 seed as much as some people do. I don't know why you would want to win to get out of it or lose intentionally to get out of the 8-9 seed line. If you've
No,
got
not
the
intentionally. Yeah, just that it
Yeah.
might be beneficial in the, you know.
No, sure, I get that, but that's what I think. And maybe the last year and this year are poor examples because our 1 seeds are just ridiculously strong compared to the others.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same way this year. Last year we had all 4 1 seeds in the Final Four, and I think this year is going to be pretty close. Maybe a 2 seed makes the Final Four.
Yeah,
I think in other years it's totally reasonable for an 8-9 seed to feel like, hey, we can make a run at this, as long as we win our first game and then we play really good. We play our A game against that 1 seed.
But those top teams have just been, really, really good. That was the last predetermined question I had for you was I was going to ask who are your top 4 teams. I've seen you talk about it a lot on Twitter. I just kind of wanted to, let you kind of run it down for everybody.
Yeah, it's hard to pick right now anyone outside of those really good teams.
Yeah.
But if I had to formulate a Final Four right now, I would say Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Houston.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've got no argument against any of those.
Yeah.
I'm sure Mike is. I can see his brain just wiring. He's trying to come up with one, but
yeah, trying to see the lines for tonight. Yeah, I could see, and this is very generic statement, but I could see the first weekend being very chalky. I think
we've seen that in the portal era, right? More, it's kind of a trend.
Last year was really chalky. I think this year's going to be a little less chalky than last year was. And last year the 1 through 4 seeds were really solid, but then the 5 through 7 seeds were actually pretty dang solid too. This year the 1 through 4 seeds are really solid. The 5 seeds decent, but then 6 and 7 is just like a meh.
Yeah.
Meh.
A lot of 5 through 10s could kind of beat up on each other hypothetically.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so I think we've seen a lot more of those
actually,
10, 11, 12 matchups that are upsets this year. But go on.
Yeah, like kind of looking at I'm looking at Hustlemetrics stuff right now. His bracketology deserves, and I know that that's a little different than your traditional bracketology, but it's a good statistic framework, in my opinion. Yeah, like looking at the 12-5 or his 12-5 potential matchups, like in Arkansas versus Miami, of Ohio, McNeese, Texas Tech, Yale versus UNC, UNI versus Wisconsin. Like, I think, yeah, those would be some good games.
Yeah, they would.
Take away, I like to see Miami go on a run just to stick it to everybody that said no to them, like.
Unless they play Mizzou, in which
yeah,
case,
we don't. Or I'd like to see a list of people that said no to them, and I would love to see a coincidental, just pure happenstance matchup as like a 12-5 or something that would just be gold. Just
I'll pivot on so this is this is not like a just to clarify, like it's not a baseball Hall of Fame vote where everyone's got their own thing, right? It's a group decision, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's it's a group decision, I guess I would say. Or you're referring to the committee seating?
To the committees, the way that they make the bracket, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that they'll do that
is not an aggregation or anything.
Yep, they'll vote teams in, and then on probably Thursday this week, they will spend time going 1 through 68, and they'll compare team 1 to team 2, team 2 to team 3, team 3 to team 4, and just determine if the resumes line up or if they need to bump teams above each other. And when they do need to bump teams above each other, they'll hold a vote, and whichever side has the most votes between the committee, that's the result that they go with.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense. Mike, you got anything else? That's all the questions I had.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any pearls of wisdom?
There and will you be there at the Final Four with us when Mizzou makes it? That's I guess the last question.
I'll tell you what, if Mizzou's at the Final Four, I will buy tickets.
Hey, there we go. Yeah, again, I've told you before.
Heard it here.
I have to propose if Mizzou makes the Final Four, so we're both in the hole if that happens.
Poor girl's been waiting 10 years.
Yeah, it's fine. It's like 9. All right, give me a break.
It's close. Yeah, I mean, just what are your kind of I don't know if you're a futures guy. Who would you be grabbing a ticket on? Whether it's like a blue blood to win it all, or some teams that maybe could,
Yeah, I don't want to make him give away all of his secrets, but yeah, if there's whatever you're comfortable giving to the people, or maybe just someone interesting, even
Let me pull a couple of teams out of the hat for you. I think there's a couple intriguing teams on the 8-9 seed line right now that I'm watching intently to see if they can pull one of those 1 seed upsets. Okay, I've got TCU as an 8 seed right now, and I've got Ohio State as a 9 seed right now. I'm going to highlight those two teams for a couple particular reasons. The first is I've seen TCU play this year, and I've actually been quite impressed by them as an overall basketball team. The first night of the season, they lost a Q4 game to New Orleans at home. It's trash. It's awful. But it was the first night of the season. They've had 4 months of basketball since. Their worst loss since then was against Notre Dame, which is in December, and their worst loss since December came in January against Utah. Other than that, they have not had a bad loss in the last month or so, and they've picked up really solid wins. They beat Florida, they beat Iowa State, they won on the road at Texas Tech, they beat Wisconsin. So they've shown a propensity to beat the best teams in the sport. They play really solid defense. I really like the physicality that they play with on defense. And they look the part right now. And that's the same reason that I'm going to talk about Ohio State is I think that Ohio State looks the part right now. Both of these teams have all the pieces to be able to make one of those types of runs that we're looking at in the beginning of April saying, wow, that team made a run to the Elite Eight. How did we not see that? So I would look at those two teams when I'm talking about futures. In terms of overall, like top end teams or blue bloods to make to win the tournament, I think I mentioned my Final Four earlier: Duke, Michigan, Arizona, Houston. Other teams that I would watch for in that top 16 include Alabama. I would say is up there. Alabama's played a very difficult schedule this year, and
uber talented at the very least.
Exactly. They're very, very talented, and they play a style of basketball in March that is favorable, I guess I would say, where it's just Nado's the style that you chuck up a bunch of threes and hope that you make them.
Yeah. Try to fight the opposing players, just the NATO style. Again, sorry, yeah, we got to make this a little Missouri centric for our listeners.
Or you bring back professional players to come play for you in college.
Yeah, of course.
But I think the overall style of basketball that Alabama plays is actually favorable in March, and so I've got my eye on them to see if they're able to make one of those runs.
Guys, if you have any thoughts on regarding Arkansas, how if you think that they have enough talent?
I think yeah.
Again, Arkansas this is our viewers might hate this, but yeah.
No, I was going to say Arkansas as well. Arkansas is a team I would mention because to win the tournament, you have to have that one piece that's like, this is our best player. This is one of the best players in the sport. This guy can carry us to a win when otherwise we would lose.
Saw it with Florida last year. Yeah,
exactly. And they have that. Arkansas has that with their Ace Cuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think Arkansas is missing any of the pieces that they would need to win a national championship. That doesn't mean that they're going to do it because I think that they've had some mixed results as of recently. But I do think this is a very good basketball team, and I've definitely got my eye on them.
Okay. Yeah. Watch it. Watch it. It's with the people listening here. And then so I assume you've got Florida as like a 2.
I've got Florida as 1 right now, as the final 1 seed.
The final 1. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry. I completely misheard you then. Yeah, man. I guess their worst loss is probably Auburn, who is on the bubble. So, oh man, what a schedule. Mike, you got anything else?
No, that's
I
it.
don't want to keep them too long. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sam. We really appreciate it. Definitely give him a follow on Twitter. We'll try to get this out in audio the next couple days.
What? No, I'll get that up tonight. And we'll tweet it out tomorrow. So what? At 801 Bracketology.
That's right.
Yeah, one of the best in the biz.
All right. Thank
Over
you
the
guys
last few years. So yeah, no, really appreciate you. I find these conversations fascinating. Hopefully, we've got some listeners that do as well.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you guys for having me on again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Love to talk to you again sometime, man. Appreciate it.
Sounds good. Enjoy.
Yep, we'll see you.
Bye-bye.
MIZ.